high school to me was not just about working, it was also about enjoying life. In my second year, in 1961, I became a guitar player, electric guitar player, and I was the lead guitar in a famous band in Manila called Madcaps, the Crazy Dogs. And as a result of that, my grades in school went down. My dream in life was to become a band player and to become a professional musician. But in my third year, I realized that my grandmother, who was paying for my expensive education, would be very disappointed if I did not do well in school. So in my final year, I worked very hard. And so fortunately, I was able to graduate with honors, and my grandmother put the medal around my neck. So I suppose the lesson I would like to share with you is that please enjoy your high school days and do what you like, but do not forget that your parents also expect you to do well. Because do not forget that I was born just after the war, 1946. So my parents' generation experienced the war, the Japanese occupation. And so I suppose we were taught to look at the Japanese as former enemy and to regard Japan as former conqueror of the Philippines. That's why my attitude was a bit negative. So when I saw Japan in 1965, I was very surprised. And I suppose the lesson from this is that you must travel. You must visit other countries in order to see for yourself the truth about these people, these countries. Not just read books and accept whatever people say. So, from my experience then, my message to you as students is that enjoy being a student like I did, playing electric guitar, and with all my hobbies like amateur radio, and also handphone. But at the same time, take your studies seriously and try to do something for the country and for humanity as a whole. Not just, not just study in order to make money and be rich and be successful, but try to use your education to try to make society better and perhaps also establish better relationships with people around you, travel, understand other cultures, try to make this a better world. Because this is what I felt as a student, this is what I tried to do in the 1960s and 1970s.
先生のお書きになった本についてもう少し詳しく知りたいなって思うのと、あとは今のフィリピンや東南アジアの若者の世代の人たちが一体どう世界についてどのような考えを持っているのかなっていうのが。
Well, I have written several books, but the best known book is called Passion and Revolution. It is a book about Christianity and popular movements in the Philippines, in which I try to understand the mentality of the people, the lower classes, people who could not write documents. In other words, it's a history of the people who could not express themselves in the past. How to write that? How to write the history of the people who have had no history before. The challenge is similar to writing the history of women. Because when you go to a big archives or library, if you look at the documents, there are very few things written about women or by women. But how do you write the history of women? So that was my similar problem. How do I write the history of the poor and inarticulate people when they do not have many documents? So that is why I found that kind of history a very exciting thing to do, because it involved trying to use the very uncommon sources for history, such as prayers, poems, folk sayings, rumors, little things that you discover about the past. Try to use those unusual documents in order to write history. Perhaps I should not say too much about that because it gets rather complicated. Well, in conclusion then, what I did was to describe the mentality of the people below, to show that it was different from the mentality of the people above. Because in the past, in Philippine history, most of our great events in history have been written from the perspective of the elites, the people on top. I was able to write what they call history from below. As for the young people of the Philippines today, just like my generation, they like to play electric guitars, and they like to enjoy life. But perhaps, unlike my generation, the young people are not so involved in politics like they used to be. And many of them still like to go to America someday, or Australia, to migrate and have a new life. But I can also say that more and more young people in the Philippines now have an option to also visit Asian countries. In my generation, it was not very common for young people to look to China, Japan, and Southeast Asia as a place that they would like to visit. Now many young people also like to go to Asia. So in a way, there are some things that are similar, and some things that are very different about the present generation. Thank you very much for giving me the privilege of speaking to you, and I agree that the questions are very high-level questions.